Hey everyone, welcome back to Just Like Magic with Julia. Before we get into it today, I really just want to come on here and ask you to like, to comment, and to subscribe. Just Like Magic is really about building a community of like-minded women and people in general who really just believe in the power of manifestation, self-love, faith in a higher power. So if you're interested in that, join the community and please subscribe to this channel. And if you choose to join this community, we will all be radiating beautiful energy and attracting all of our desires just like magic. Today, we are talking about self-worth and why no one has the power to ever determine your self-worth. Why self-worth is only something that you can determine for yourself, and how self-worth can potentially help you attract your desires and operate at a higher frequency. What a crazy week it's been. Last week, I actually went to Istanbul, Turkey with my mom. We had planned this trip because she had to get some dental work done. And so I've known for a few months that I was going on this trip. And when I tell you the day before, like I really had a whole crash out. Like I was about to cancel my trip and lose all of my money because I was going through such rough feelings and issues with self-worth and anxiety. And thank God for my mom, for the universe, for the faith that I have in the universe and God and everything, because honestly, like I just felt a push within myself to go. And honestly, like sometimes I'm a really big believer in like reflecting and taking out time for yourself and like, really figuring things out and sitting down and setting aside a time to do that and prioritize it. And I felt myself really like resisting and not wanting to go because I really needed time to just be in my comfort zone. But honestly, like being away and just traveling and seeing new perspectives and new culture and new ways of life really just gave me a whole new perspective, which is why I'm sitting here with you all today to talk about worth. So, with all of the craziness that happened this week, I really learned that nothing outside of me can ever define who I am. I know that that sounds so simple, and someone struggling or anyone can kind of just sit and watch me say that and just be like, well, yeah, duh, like nothing outside of you defines you. But sometimes we don't understand the magnitude of how the world can really make us feel, and how norms and comparison and all these things that maybe we don't even consciously realize every single day kind of seep into our brains and affect the way that we see ourselves. So nothing can define who I am. And I've finally gotten to the point in my journey that I can say that and own that and feel that wholeheartedly. But I also, at the same time of saying that, really want to acknowledge that like this has been so hard for me, because self-love and self-worth, especially like when you're raised in certain households, don't necessarily come natural. It's been a really long and hard journey for me to even get to the point where I'm able to say that and own that. And now I'm realizing that the new challenge, the new hardship is really maintaining that, because I think it's really easy to feel that way, when everything is going good. But when something challenges it, when you're on this journey of self-love and self-worth and maintaining, all of this like newness, things naturally will challenge that. And I've learned that it's my job, my responsibility to maintain it and to challenge myself to make the conscious effort to challenge things that challenge that belief. So for example, when I find myself, having conversations with people that I love, friends, family in my life, and I find myself, being triggered or feeling sad or being jealous, instead of pushing it down and suppressing it and kind of just like moving along, I've had to do so much shadow work and so much inner self-reflection to be able to ask myself, why is this coming up and why do I feel this way? Most of the time, it boils down to feelings of being judged by someone else, or feelings of not fulfilling an expectation that someone has of me, not being perfect, fear of failure. And all of those things at the end of the day are outside of me. And so I've made it a conscious effort when I feel that way and when I can kind of pinpoint the root of it, to be able to challenge it and say, well, what does that mean if I'm not meeting an expectation? And 9 out of 10 times, the answer to that question is, well, that person doesn't define me, right? I'm still great. I love that person. I care for them. Maybe I can communicate with them and work it out. Maybe I can express to them how this is making me feel. Maybe I can express to them what I'm capable of, or, maybe I need to do more work. But I end up getting to a conclusion that reminds me that the things that trigger my self-worth do not define my self-worth. And the truth is, like, for all people, we're all in a certain capacity held to expectations of what defines our worth. As a young girl, I was taught by, some of my teachers, whether it was in school or whether it was, teachers in the form of family members or friends, that my worth was defined as my weight, my physical appearance, my accomplishments, my success. And basically, I was taught that worth was defined by everything outside of me. So, what happened to me at such a young age was I began to see who I naturally was as not good enough. And then in turn, if someone had something or possessed something naturally that I didn't have, because I was taught that those things defined me, I would look at them and say, well, why do they have it and I don't? If they have it and I don't, what does that mean? Oh, they must be better than me naturally. They must be prettier. They must be smarter. They must be more successful. And then as you get older, what happened to me at least was those beliefs, those thoughts began to create assumptions, which isn't true. But I think because when you're taught that worth is everything outside of you, and then you see everyone just naturally going along in life and possessing things that you shouldn't even be thinking about as a kid, but now you are, you should just be like living authentically as a child. But when it's ingrained in you, you start to see those things outside of you. And that for me personally created anxiety, and it created comparison, and it created competition. It created insecurity within myself for things that I never saw as a problem, but the world was telling me were a problem. And it wasn't until recently that I really realized nothing outside of me can define what's inside of me. Because the truth is, right, energy doesn't lie. There are so many beautiful people in this world. There are so many successful people in this world. There are so many people who have it all, like whatever we consider it all, whether it's cars, clothes, husbands, wives, success, accomplishments, really great jobs, a full family, right? And they are truly miserable, or they don't necessarily see the value in those things, or they don't wake up every morning and appreciate them for what they actually really are. And that in itself is comparison. So I don't want to get too caught up in that, but I just want to make that point that you can have it all on paper, you can have it all on an Instagram post, but that doesn't mean you're satisfied. That doesn't mean you're fulfilled. And I know that when I have it all, I want to get to that point and be fulfilled internally. I want to love myself. I want to love everything outside of me that I've built and created for myself. Even though I don't want to compare it to anyone else, I just know that because of the way society makes people feel about themselves and their worth, it's really easy to look at others, celebrities, influencers, or even just people in your life and be like, wow, everyone has this, that, and the third, and I don't. So something must be wrong with me. And that's just simply not the truth. And I've learned over time that worth is not defined by physical appearance. It's just not. The only reason why people define worth with physical appearance is because of the external validation that physical appearance brings. When you look one way, or a certain way that society says is the best way, it's likely that a lot of other people will give you a stamp of approval. And that's why worth is usually associated with things like weight or physical appearance, when in reality, those are just two completely separate things. There's always going to be someone who doesn't think you're their type of pretty, or who doesn't think your accomplishments are that great, or who doesn't think that, you're the best thing in the world. That's just the truth. But in addition to that, the truth is, so what? The truth is, people are subjective by nature, and not everyone is always going to be in alignment with you. We are all people living this life for the first time, trying to find what's meant for us. That means that while we're in search for it, we may come across people who aren't in alignment with who we are or what we want. And so rejection becomes necessary when you are living in your purpose and only allowing people and opportunities and jobs and successes and accomplishments who match that specific version of your alignment to come into your life. You have to know how to weed out what's not for you in order to know what is for you. And that goes for everyone else too. Now, I just want to make a quick note here. Rejection and being rude are two different things. You can be respectful to someone and quite simply just say, this is not for me. But being rude and judging and criticizing and thinking that you're better than them, or whatever negative egotistical attribute you're going to add to that, is where things get wrong. But that's for another video. But if we don't know our own worth, we can take rejection really personally and begin to rely on people to validate our own worth. And this is so dangerous because external validation is like a drug. Because you're using it to fulfill something that only you can give to yourself, you're gonna need more and more and more of it. Our worth is defined by the value that we bring to this world naturally and authentically. Kindness, compassion, integrity, respect, caringness, and all of the things that stem out of that. And we all bring value to this world, whether you know it or not. We all have gifts, we all have talents, we all have skills, and all of those things are valuable. And our worth is based on how we treat and see ourselves and how we allow other people to treat us as well. My self-love journey was especially difficult because at the time I was in a really bad place with the way that I saw myself. Again, I wasn't meeting certain societal expectations, and I had someone who I was really, really, really close to who was going through a really rough time in their lives. They were projecting their own stuff onto me when they felt less worthy of who they were. And because this person was in a really bad place in their own life, they made it a point to make sure that I knew that I was not worthy of love according to them. And in turn made me question my own worth. And it's really easy to tell people, okay, but those are just words, like, don't listen to that person. But when people hold weight in your life, when people are in positions to guide you and to teach you, and when you have really close-knit relationships and respect for other people, and maybe they know you differently than everyone else, maybe you're close to them, they hold weight. Their words hold weight. Their opinion holds weight, especially when you're younger and impressionable. And in this situation, I was. And so even though they were just words, that really stuck with me. And I let them determine my worth for a really long time. And in turn, coincidentally, or not coincidentally, but I don't believe in coincidences, but at the same time that that was happening, I was seeing someone who wasn't necessarily good for me compatibility wise, but was present in my life while I was going through all of these different things. And so because we were close, because we were building a romantic connection, I began to look to them to determine my worth. And when they began to reject me because of their own things that were going on in their life that were super independent from me and my worth and just like who I was to them, I started to create this narrative about myself, about how the person who told me I wasn't worthy of love was right, because look, this person doesn't love me and I've done X, Y, and Z for them. And so I began to take everyone's word for my self-worth but my own. And I find that that's something that I think a lot of us do, right? If we're not receiving external validation for who we naturally are, it can feel really lonely. It can feel really sad. It can feel really depressing, because how do we know if we're enough? That was a question that I had a lot through my self-worth journey, through my self-love journey. But the thing is, that question in itself is a lie. We're enough just because we're here. We're enough just because we bring things naturally to the table, to the lives of the people that we love. We're enough because we exist simply, naturally, authentically. And there's nothing in this world that can take that away from you. But at the same time, it's really hard to come back to that truth when there are so many other different people who don't have that knowledge and try to project on you. And so for me, because I'm such a big believer in energy, because I'm such a big believer in a higher power and faith, because that's truly just how I've survived everything and gotten to where I am, the truth that set me free was the only person who can determine my self-worth is God. Plain and simple, period. And I say God because that's what I believe in, but whatever higher power you believe in, that's the universe, any higher power. That's what can truly only determine your self-worth, because that's who knows your intentions. That's who knows your heart and your life and your true value. And so through understanding that, I was able to then see the value that I began to bring to the table. And once I learned that, God is really the only person who can judge me. The universe is the only thing that can judge me based on my energy, based on how I feel about myself and how I feel about others and what I want to do in this world. That's when I realized that the people who I was holding such a grudge towards because they were determining my worth for so long didn't even know they were doing that, because they're people too. They're just people, just like me and you. So how can I determine someone's worth or allow them to determine my worth if we're all the same? And once I realized that no one, nothing could truly measure who I am, and that I am limitless, honestly. And you are limitless, and all of us are limitless. And once I began to understand that, it became a ripple effect, and it poured over into how I felt about myself. And the things that maybe I was afraid to do before, I wasn't so afraid to do now, because I was developing true confidence, not in surface level things like looks or style or, success or accomplishments. Those things are great too. They're not bad, but they don't define me. They don't define you. I started to develop confidence in who I was as a person, in the interests that I have, in the way that I interact with people, and the things that I do daily, because those things truly are me. And if anyone were to tell me anything about those things, they don't know me. They can't define me because they don't know me. There's always going to be someone that tests your worth. There's always going to be someone who tries to tell you you're not enough. But the truth is, they can't determine that, because everyone on earth is the same. Who is anyone to tell anyone else their worth? No one can tell me anything about who I am because I know it. And if there is a person who's telling you about your worth, that person is not for you. That person is not meant to be in your life. I think that sometimes, depending on culture, depending on generational stuff, right? It's really hard for people above me personally to see things this way, because they're so embedded in the norm and in the culture of defining their worth with things external from them, and I've had to understand that and do a lot of internal work there, because truthfully, I can't expect things from people who don't understand them the way that I do, and that didn't have access to this sort of information and this freedom, this mental freedom, this emotional freedom, because that's not their experience. So while I know that it may be common for people who are from different generations to not have the same kind of sort of thought process, it's up to us to not let that get in the way of our own journeys, and to forgive those people, not for them necessarily, but for ourselves, and to understand the magnitude of what's happened to them, because they also have just been conditioned to believe this. And because people from different generations have been conditioned to believe that, they've also passed it down. And not everyone in the world is going to be a person who, goes against the grain and does a lot of inner work, right? So it may be common for you to be tested, but we also have to understand and know that no matter who tests us, we're the ones in charge of ourselves. We're the ones to take accountability and responsibility for our own selves and our own work that we have to do continuously in order to stay rooted in our worth. Remember, practice makes perfect. This is a new chapter on my journey for me. And, while I'm comfortable in it and while I'm just starting to see the differences that it's making in my life, it's new. And that means that it requires maintenance and practice in order for it to become habitual. Lastly, I've learned what's for me is for me. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea regardless of my worth. Sometimes my personality may not be for everyone. People may not like me because I may trigger a part of their own insecurity. I don't know. Whatever the reason is, what's for me is for me. And I know that because I'm connected to my worth, because I'm connected to God, I have a purpose, I have a plan. And so everything that is high energy, high worth, high value, I am drawing in, because that's where I'm at. But I also want to make a note that even when you get to this point of confidence, you still are tested, you still are challenged. And the reason why I say that is because I think that sometimes it's really easy to be tested and challenged and to fall back into old routines, old habits, old thought patterns of, okay, look, this happened, so I'm not worthy, right? But the truth is, I was actually challenged not too long ago when I was really soaring high in my self-confidence. And I had to be so mindful and so aware to use that challenge as a reflection of what old habits, what anxious attachment habits, what habits that were rooted in my anxious attachment style that were coming out of me. where was I going wrong? Where was I still showing up as someone who didn't necessarily align with a high value, high self-worth? And as long as you continue to look at life and the things that come up for you as things that are coming up for you and not happening to you, you will be able to flourish and to thrive and to use those things as ways to improve yourself, to continuously go on this journey and flourish in this journey of self development, which is really what matters. Just remember that what's for you is truly for you. Nothing outside of you can ever define you. No one has the right, the privilege, or the power to ever define who you are as a person, and your worth is a lot greater than you will ever even know or think it is. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope that this video inspired you to continue to understand your own self-worth and to always remember that no one can ever define who you are. Please remember to like and subscribe and let me know in the comments what you would like to see more of. I'll see you all soon. Bye.